Hi everyone, my name is Siddhant and today we'll be doing the data analysis on the digital music store, and over here we have the objective, that is to examine the dataset with SQL and help the store to understand its business growth by answering simple questions. Okay, so the SQL file that we're going to work on, I have given the link below in the link description, so you can go ahead and check that. Right, so let us get started with the pgadmin4. So here I will open the server and I will create a new database. So to create a new database, I will click on database and go to create database. Okay, and I would like to keep my database name as music_dbase. Right, so over here we have the music_database. Let me just show you the schema. So I hope you guys know that what is a schema, right? Schema is nothing but the table that has the relationship with each other. Okay, now if you see the table section, so we don't have any data here, right? So which clearly means that we need to restore the data or import the SQL file, right? So for that reason, what we will do, we will restore the SQL file, and let me just import the file name here. Ours is music store database, open, restore. We can see that the process has been started and the process has been completed, right? It hardly takes like 2 or 3 seconds. Now what we will do, we will just refresh this and check how it is. Right, now we have a couple of tables, right, like album, artist, customer, employee, invoice, playlist and rack. Now I'll just open the query tool over here. Okay, so here we will be dealing with 3 sets of questions. Okay, so the first set of questions will be the questions which are easy, and the second questions will be moderate, and the last questions will be advanced. Okay, so let me just quickly put up the easy questions first. Okay, so I have put some questions over here, and let us start with the first question, that is, who is the senior most employee on the job title? So by seeing this question itself, we can find out, right, that from which table are we supposed to check. That is, we need to check from the employee table, right? So first let us go and check that what are the elements that is present in the employee table. Select space, start from table name. So over here we have the table name as employee, right? So that is why I'll put here as employee. Let me just select this and run. Okay, I'll just make this bigger. So over here we will require the first name, last name, what else. We will also need the title and the levels, right? Because the question is who's the senior most employee on the job title, right? So based on the levels, we have to choose that who's the most senior, right? So let us just go ahead and write the query. So we need to select the let us go and select the first name, and then I will need my last name to display also. I mean for the employee, first name, last name. Then what else do I need? I need the title, also I need the levels. Okay, and from which table I need this from employee table. Okay, now I would like to sort this by the levels, right? It's because the highest level indicates that the employee is at the highest position, right? So I will do all order by levels in descending order. So if I just select this and run, we can see that Madan Mohan, who is a senior general manager and who is in level 7, is the most senior employee, right? So if you just need one person, you can just type limit 1, and over here we just need to see one person, right? It's because they have just asked for 1, they haven't asked for the top 10 or something. So we will just do this and we will run this. Okay, now this is good. I'll just put up the answers here also. So it is Madan Mohan. Alright, now coming to the second question, which countries have the most invoices? So it's the same here. Looking at the question, we can find out that from which table do we need to relate, right? So invoice comes through the invoice table itself, right? Anyway, let us go ahead and check it once. Select start from invoice. I will select this and run. let me see what comes, what are the data there. So we have the billing address, billing city, billing state, and billing country, right? So we need to focus on this one, billing country, right? So we need to, so let us go ahead and write that query. Select what, billing country. And now since the question is which countries have the most invoices, right? So looking at the question itself, we can find out, so we can know that we need to find the total count of the invoices, right? So what we will do, we can use a count function, count of star. I will assign this as CT. From which table? From invoice table. Now I will need to group by the billing country. Now why am I doing group by billing country? Because the rows might get duplicated and I would not get the accurate answer, right? So for that reason I'm doing it as group by billing country, and I would like to order this by count. Okay, now just let me, and I want this in descending order. One thing you need to remember, guys, if you do not mention anything over here like the ascending or descending, by default this order by will take it as in ascending format itself. Alright, so since over here I will need the most invoices, which is the top invoices, the top count invoices, so for that reason I'll put here as descending. Now let me just select this and run. Right, you can see here, right, the USA has the highest count with 131, that is followed by Canada and 76. Okay, so here we have an answer. So let me just put the result here. So USA with 131. Alright, now coming to the third question, what are the top 3 values of the total invoice? Right, so we can know that we need to check this from the invoice table itself. So let me just go ahead and check the invoice table once again. Select start from invoice table name, right? I'll just select this and run. Let's see what exactly do they need. So if you come to the last column, right, under the total section, so they need what? They only need the top 3 values of the total invoice, right? So looking at the question itself, we have our answer that we need to select the total, right, from the invoice table, and we need to order this by descending order. Why descending order? Sorry, we need to order the total by descending order. Now why descending order? That's because we need the top 3 values of the total invoice. Okay, and now we can put the limit as 3, and you know, right, like why I'm putting the limit as 3, it's because we just need the top 3 values. If they're asking us about top 5 values, so it will be limit 5. Okay, let me just select this and run, and let us see the output. So we have found our output, right? In the total we have like 3 inputs over here, 3 outputs over here, that is 23.75, 19.8, and again 19.8. So here we have our answer, 23.75, 19.8, again 19.8. Okay, alright, now coming to the fourth question, which city has the best customers? We would like to throw a promotional music festival in the city we made the most money. Write a query that returns one city that has the highest sum of invoice totals. Return both the city names and the sum of all invoice totals, right? So the question looks a bit big, but it is not that complex. So we just need to retrieve 2 things over here, which is the city name as well as the sum of all invoice totals. Okay, so we need to retrieve the data from which table? From the invoice table, right? It's because like if we see the question itself, that asking us to retrieve the data which is the sum of all the totals. Okay, so once again let us go and check the table which is the invoice table. Select run. Okay, so we need to find the sum of total of this relating to which city we need. Okay, fine, that's fine. So let's start. Select space, we need here the billing city and the total. Okay, I'll just mark this billing underscore city, and we need the sum of totals. So to find the sum of totals, we will be using the sum function, right? Sum of total, I will assign this as what, invoice underscore total. Okay, and I need this from the invoice table. Now I will need to group by the billing city. Why am I supposed to do this? Because if I don't group by, then we'll have multiple rows that gets duplicated. Okay, so to avoid that, we'll be using the group by clause. Group by billing city, and I want this to be order by, I want this to be sorted by the invoice total in descending order. Okay, so let me just run this. Right, so we can see that the city Prague has the highest invoice total, followed by the Mountain View, which has 169.29, and the others. Okay, so here we have found the answer. So the answer is Prague. Alright, now coming to the fifth question, who is the best customer? The customer who has spent the most money will be declared as the best customer. Write a query that returns the person who has spent the most money. Okay, now looking at this question, we can see that we can get the data from two tables, right? So the first table is what? The customer, and the second thing is invoice, right? It's because we need to find the sum of the total from the invoice table, right? If I show you from the schema diagram, you'll be able to understand much better. So we need to build a relation between customer table as well as the invoice table, and the only thing that can connect the two tables is nothing one, which is the attribute which is the common, right? So over here we can see that customer ID is the same in customer and as well as in invoice. Okay, so by the help of this, we will be joining these two tables and getting our output. So let me go ahead and show you the output. Select customer dot customer ID. Now what is this customer dot customer ID? That means in the customer table we are taking the customer ID field. Okay, so I will also need the customer name, because I would like to find that who is the best customer, right? So I want the ID as well as the first name. So customer first name, and I need the customer last name too, and also I need the sum of total column that is an invoice table, right? I will assign this as total, and I'll be taking this from customer table. Okay, because I have to join the customer table and the invoice table. Okay, so that's the reason I'm taking from the customer table. From customer join, I need to join which table? The invoice table, right? So join invoice on. So the common thing in between the customer and invoice is customer ID. Okay, so invoice dot customer ID is equal to customer dot customer ID. Okay, now we have finished with the join one. Now we need to group by. So group by what? We need to group by the customer ID, right? It's because we don't know that how many customers ID might get like even duplicated, right? And it's possible that the same customer can do purchases multiple times, right? So the customer IDs can get repeated. So for that reason, we will be using group by customer ID, and I will order this by total in descending order. Okay, let's go ahead and run the script. What is the thing here? Okay, group by, it should be customer dot customer ID. You need to give the same name over here. Okay, so we can see that the topmost the best customer is R Madhav with a total of 144.54. okay, so here we have got output. Let me just put it over here, R Madhav. Alright, so now let's perform the task on the second set of questions, which is the moderate questions, right? So the first question is, write a query to return the email, first name, last name, and the genre of all the rock music listeners. Return your list ordered alphabetically by email starting with A. Alright, so for this, what we can do, we need to take the data from the customer, right? So we can clearly see that we need to take the data which is from customer table, which is the first name, last name and the email address, right? And we need to connect all the way through the genre, because we need to add this filter that the genre name should be equal to rock. Okay, so for that reason we need to connect with all the tables, like the customer should be joined with invoice, the invoice should be joined with invoice line, goes with track, and last comes the genre. Okay, so let's just write on the query here. Okay, so select distinct. I will need the first name, and then I need the last name, and then I need the email address from the customer table. I'll just put this in the next line, from the customer table, and I will be joining the customer table to invoice by the basis of customer ID. Okay, so join invoice on invoice dot customer ID is equal to, sorry, customer ID is equal to customer dot customer ID. Okay, I have linked the customer and invoice. Next I'm supposed to link invoice and invoice line by the basis of invoice ID, right? Because the invoice ID is same in both the tables, right? So same here again, join invoice line on invoice line dot invoice ID is equal to invoice dot invoice ID. Okay, now we have done with invoice and invoice line. Next comes the track, right? So we need to connect the invoice line table and the track table by the basis of that track ID, because the track ID is common in both the tables. Okay, so for that, join track on track dot track ID is equal to invoice line is equal invoice line dot track ID. Okay, now we have linked with the track also. Last comes the genre. Okay, so over here we have the same attribute, which is the genre ID. So let's connect it. Join genre on genre dot genre ID and track dot genre ID. Okay, now we have joined all the five tables, that is customer, invoice, invoice line, track and genre. Now on what basis do we need to filter? Okay, so we need to filter from the rock music listeners, which is the genre name. So I'll put here where genre dot name like rock. So guys, you can either type your like, or you can just simply put an equal to symbol. So anything works fine. Okay, like or equal to is fine. So for now I'll just put this as like where genre dot name like rock, and they're asking me what to return your list ordered alphabetically by email starting with A. So it's obvious, right? So which clause do we use over here? We need to use the order by clause, because we need to sort them, right? So we will order by email, right? Because they've asked us to order it by email with ascending order. You can either type ascending or leave it blank, that's fine, but for the best practices I will write ascending order over here. Now let us go ahead and just run this and check what is output. You can see here that Harry Michelle with the email address harrymichelle@yahoo.ca is the first over here, and it has been reflected with the ascending order, the order in the email ID, right? So here we are done with the first question. Alright, so coming to the second question, let's invite the artists who have written the most rock music in our dataset. So write a query that returns the artist name and total track count of the top 10 rock bands. Okay, so this question is much simpler than the previous question also. So let us just check with the schema diagram. So what are they asking? Let's invite the artists who have written the most rock music in our dataset. Okay, so we need to retrieve the artist ID as well as the name. Then what else? write a query that returns the artist name and the total track, right? So we have to check this total track count of the top 10 rock bands. That means we need to find the count of the artist ID, right? Because the artist ID will contain the number of songs, okay? And we need to consider artist table, album table, track table, and also the genre table, okay? So that clearly means that we need to make a relation between these four tables by the help of the common fields, okay? So let's get started. Select artist ID, and I need my artist from artist table. I need my artist name. Is it artist name or just the name? It's just the name, right? And we need to make sure of these things. If you put some wrong tables, the wrong fields, then it will not work. It will throw some error. And what else we need? We need the count of the artist ID, okay? So we can use a count function here of artist ID, and I want to assign this as number of songs, so that it's easy for us to understand, right? And now from which table will I take this? We need to take this from the track table. Now let me tell you why. Now since we need to make a relation between these four tables, so we're taking a common table over here called as a track ID, okay? So that's the reason we'll be connecting with all the three other tables. So let's join it. So again the same thing, join with album by using the album ID as the common name, okay? Join album on album dot album ID is equal to track dot album ID. Now I'm done with this. Now from album table I need to connect to the artist table, okay, by the help of artist ID. Same here, join artist table on artist dot artist ID equal to album dot artist ID, okay? Now we have joined. Now we are yet to join the last one, that is the genre table, by the help of the genre ID, okay? So join genre table on by the basis of genre ID is equal to track dot genre ID, okay? Alright, now we need to filter this, right? So we need which band? We need the rock band. So it's again we need to use the where condition over here, where genre dot name like rock, okay? And now we need to group this by the artist ID, right? Why artist ID? I have just mentioned that we might have a number of the artist ID, right, for which the rows might get duplicated and we might not get an accurate result, okay? So for that reason, group by like instead of typing all this artist dot artist ID, we can simply type 1, okay? And if we want to check the group by the name, then it will be artist by 2, okay? So for now I just need to check my artist ID, so I'll just put group by 1. Then I need to order this by the number of songs. I need to see what are the highest number of songs in descending order, okay? And what is the count that you need? We need the top 10, right? That clearly says that we need to use limit 10, okay? Now let's just select this and run. We can see, right? So the artist ID with number 22 with the name Led Zeppelin has 114 songs, okay? So we have the highest over here, the top 10 songs we can see over here. So all these are the top 10 songs. It starts from Led and it ends with Kiss, okay? Alright, so coming to the last question, return all the track names that have a song length longer than the average song length, okay? So over here we can understand that we need the milliseconds to be more than the average of milliseconds, right? Now return the name and milliseconds for each track order by the song length with the longest songs listed first. So this means order by the longest song, descending order, right? So we have got the queries in the question itself. Anyway, let's go ahead and write the code, the query. Select, I will need the name, and also I will need what? Let's open the schema diagram. So from this track table, I will need the name as well as the milliseconds from the track table, okay? So select name milliseconds from which table? From track table, okay? Now we use a where clause where the milliseconds should be greater than the average of milliseconds, right? So for that we will again put a query, the subquery select. We use the average functions to find the average of milliseconds as average track length from the track table, okay? And I will need to do order by the song length, right? So which is my average track length, and we need the highest one, so we will do descending order, okay? Let's just go ahead and run the code. Before that, let me show you that what is the average milliseconds over here, okay? So I'll just select this thing and I will run this. So we can see the average track length is how much? 39,305 whatever 99, okay? So over here, that means the question is saying that we need to select only those milliseconds, those names whose millisecond is greater than this amount, okay? So for that reason we have written this query. Now let us go ahead and run the enter query, then you will get some understanding, okay? Average track length does not exist, of course, right? I need to order this by milliseconds, not the average track length. Let me just change this, order by milliseconds, right? It's because why? We need to check which is the highest milliseconds that is displayed, right? So let me select this and run. So we can see, right? The name is in the name of occupation, the millisecond is how much? 52,86,953 seconds, okay? So with that order it decreases, and yeah, so we are done with the third question too. Alright, now coming to the last set of questions, that is the questions in advanced stage. Find how much amount spent by each customer on artists. Write a query to return the customer name, artist name, and the total amount spent, okay? So I have already written down the query here, so I'll be explaining this step by step. So basically here what we have done is we have taken a CT, right? So I hope you know what is CT. So CT is nothing but it's a common table, okay? So we'll be using it like a temporary table in order to use them in the next query, okay? So we have created a temporary table which is the best selling artist as select artist ID, artist name, and the sum. So first let's understand the concept behind this question, okay? So basically what we need is artist ID, the artist name, and as well as we need the total, okay? So how do you find the total? And you should know that the total in invoice is different than the total in the invoice line, okay? So in the total in the invoice line, it adds up the total quantity of all the sales happened, okay? So in order to find the total, we have a formula: unit price into quantity is equal to total, right? So let's begin. So we have taken that the artist ID, artist name, and as well as the sum of the total, okay, from the invoice line table. And what we need to do is we need to connect all these four tables together in order to find the data related to the invoice side, okay? So for that reason what we have done, we have joined the track table, album table, as well as the artist table, and we have grouped by the artist ID, as I mentioned, right? So we might have the couple of artist ID, which is the number of songs and everything, but so what we have done is we have just grouped it by the artist ID for us to see a accurate answer, okay? And we will order this by 3, that is 1, 2, 3. So that is we will order this by the total sales in decreasing order. Why decreasing order? Because we need to see the top sales, okay? And I just need one row to be affected over here, okay? So by this thing we have retrieve the data which we need from the invoice part of the view. Now we also need to return the customer name, right? So for customer name we need to open another query, that is select c.customer_id. so you don't have to worry about what is c and everything, okay? So it is just like a short form that is given for customer. It's a bit long to write, right? Like always a customer name, the invoice line and everything. So for that reason we have given as customer is c, the invoice line is il, track is d, the album is alb, and the best selling artist is bsa. Alright, so you don't have to worry about this. Now to retrieve the customer data, we have done select customer id, first name, last name, and the best selling artist, because we have taken the data from the previous query, right? And we will also find the sum of all the total sales, which will be assigning that as amount spent from invoice I. That means keeping the invoice I in between, we have to connect all the tables coming from customer, invoice, invoice line, track, album, and artist. Okay, so basically we are doing the normal thing itself. We are just joining all the tables, but the twist comes over here. Okay, now we will not be joining the album table to the artist table. Instead we will be joining the album table to the best selling artist, because we need to find the best selling artist, right, based on the customer side. So for that reason we have done here join best selling artist bsa on bsa.artist_id is equal to album.artist_id. And again I have done the group by. We have group by everything, almost the customer id, first name, last name, bsa.name, and also we have ordered this by descending order, right? It's because we need to see that what is the highest amount spent. Now if you run the entire query, let's check the output. Alright, so basically we just had a small issue on the best selling artist side. Okay, now it's been solved. Now if you just select all this and run, we can see that we have got the data, right, of the artist name is Queen. Like, I mean, it's a best selling artist which is Queen, and Hugh O'Reilly has the highest amount spent, that is 27.71.